I actually thought I was gonna be able to get off recording all three of those time those all three segments of that video at one time. But life happened. Life just bent me over and did its thing to me, and I just had to sit there and take it. So here we are, a week later, finally getting back around to you guys. As you will notice, a young nigga dripped out type shit. Yeah, shit kind of hurt though. It didn't hurt as much as I thought it was gonna hurt, but shit kind of hurt. But I'm a big boy. I'm a tough boy. Brr. The shelf that was back here is no longer back here. I sacrificed it to the altar, to the overlords, to make sure that I actually got enough outlet space back here to plug in everything that I need to plug in back here. Video quality is just a little bit better because I forgot that I had a camera and I was actually using my phone to record the previous two parts. It's not the best camera in the world, but it's a pretty good camera. I'm proud of her. She's doing her thing. But yeah, we're getting back. We're getting back to the third video in this series of introductory videos of sorts. I am doing my deconstruction story now, and this story I will be reading directly from a prepared little essay here that I got, because I find that I do better when I'm able to put my thoughts to words instead of trying to come up with things to say on the spot. I might end up forgetting things, I might end up missing out details of a story. So I just thought that for something as grand as this and something as important as this, where it's like putting my entire deconstruction story into a singular story, into a singular video, I wanted to get this right the first time. So yeah, I will be reading directly from the script. So if you guys see me looking down here, I am looking at my laptop. I grew up in Barbados, which has a largely Christian population. I think between 70 and 80% of people in Barbados identify as Christians. Christianity was all I knew. Religious education, which I was shocked to find out isn't a subject in the US, was pretty much just Christian indoctrination, so it's not like I had much of a choice in believing anything else. My family was fairly religious. My uncle was a Rastafari, my aunt was Protestant, and my grandmother was seemingly non-denominational Christian. My mother was also seemingly non-denominational Christian, so we ended up going to church with my grandmother a lot. I never really liked church, if I'm going to be honest. It was overstimulating as fuck. Loud. Way too loud. If you've ever been to a black church, you know that they can get loud. Maybe that does something for everyone else, but I hate loudness. I sat way too close to people I didn't know or want to know and made to smell their various overwhelming perfumes. Honestly, what got me by in church was looking at everybody's funky hats. What the hell did you have on? Why did you wear that? I knew I just hated church too, because when I had to do my Bible readings on my own, I actually enjoyed it. My aunt and my grandmother used to do this thing with my cousin and I for a short time period where we would read the Bible and we would talk about our different interpretations of the different Bible verses. I think this is also how I was introduced to the idea of differing denominations in Christianity, even though I wouldn't come to understand it until much later in my life. My aunt and my grandmother would have conflicting interpretations of the same text, and I found it also fascinating to speculate. I didn't know exactly which interpretation I believed in, but I mostly enjoyed hearing about the different interpretations. So quick side note, it just reminded me of this one time. So I've got a childhood friend. His name is Raymond, and I remembered there was this one year where his mom was doing like a birthday thing for him, and she wanted me to be there before he showed up. So I had to wake up like kind of early in the morning. So I wasn't necessarily upset about this, but I was still kind of upset about it. I got woken up at like 7 in the morning that morning. Because my aunt and my aunt, and when I say aunt, I mean my mother's aunt, so my great aunt. And when I say my grandmother, I mean my great grandmother. So I think I'll just start saying great grandmother and great aunt. My great aunt and my great grandmother were in an argument about whether or not Saturday or Sunday was the true Sabbath. And it was like kind of fascinating to hear, but also kind of frustrating to hear because the youngest person in the room was like 45. It just kind of seemed like a stupid thing to be arguing about that early in the morning. But yeah, that's just a quick side story that I just remembered as I was reading this. I think what was most important to me about Christianity as a kid, though, was the wrath of God. The idea that I could be banished to hell for all of eternity or literally smited out of existence by God himself terrified me. I didn't see how it couldn't. I could burn in hell for eternity? My little kid brain could barely conceive of a number past 1,000, but I'll be there forever? The concept of God being a jealous God was also something that bothered me greatly as a kid because it created a whole new paranoia within me that I wouldn't fully deconstruct until much later in my life. Aside from the fact that it's simply in conflict with an omnibenevolent God, I had a fear that we could actually all be being tricked into worshiping the devil this whole time and that I could go to hell if I didn't recognize this and stop. So I asked my mother for my own Bible, and she got one for me. I was determined to read the entire Bible and pick it apart to ensure that there was no misunderstandings and that I was indeed worshiping the right God. Through this time period where my cousin, my great aunt, and my great grandmother, we would all like read Bible verses and whatnot. I'm just like kind of like, damn, this God guy seems kind of evil, no? Like this God guy seems kind of a bad person. And I just thought to myself, like, is there a possibility that this isn't God, And I had to read more because I wasn't reading from my own Bible when we were doing that. We had Bibles on deck, right? But none of them were mine, and I wanted my own Bible that I could do whatever I want to with, right? So I asked my mom for my Bible, and yeah, I just had to do my own research to make sure that that's like we're really worshiping the right God and we're not just like worshiping Satan this whole time and then he's just going to come back at the end of time like, haha, it was me all along and all of the Christians who followed me are going to hell with me. Ultimately, the more I reflect on it, the more I question whether or not I actually ever believed in God or if I was simply just afraid of him. I very seldom prayed unless I was forced to because I never felt a connection. I never felt like my prayers were being answered. Adults around me would say, God works in mysterious ways, and that was good enough for me, for a time. Fast forwarding to 2014, I would have been 12, about to turn 13 around this time. My aunt, we're just going to call her Aunt Rose for the sake of story. She was the eldest of my great grandmother's children. She isn't the aunt I lived with. So we're just going to call aunt that I lived with. We're not going to call her anything. I don't think that she gets mentioned anymore. We're just talking about Aunt Rose at this time. You just had to know that Aunt Rose did not live with me. She was pretty much the only person outside of my mother and grandmother who didn't show. When I say grandmother, I mean my actual grandmother, not my great grandmother. She was the only person outside of my mother and my grandmother who didn't show disgust with my presence or just indifference. She was kind. She would tell me how much I looked like my father in a good way and not a spiteful/hateful way. She had no children of her own. She would shower, just quickly going back to the whole like looking like my father thing, like she used to like hold my hands and like examine my fingers and just look at my fingernails like, you guys got the same fingernails, you guys got the same fingers, like, and I just used to be like even as a kid, I was just like, yo, this is cool that like you're examining me like this, but like, how do you know this about him? How do you know what my father's fingernails look like? Do you just like hold his hand and examine his fingernails and everything while you're talking to him? Like, and I remember like whenever I would talk to my dad about Aunt Rose, he also had very good things to say about her. Like, she was once again probably the only person in the family that was nice to him. She was, if you hated Aunt Rose, it was a you problem. It wasn't a problem with her. She was a ray of sunshine, for a lack of better words. She had no children of her own, so she would shower my cousin and I with gifts.
She made me feel special in this way because most other family members would only gift my cousin. I felt seen and loved by her. She was lively. She was a football coach for a time period, so she was very involved with the community. I remember she actually somehow knew my librarian. Like, eventually, like the story is leading to her death. And my librarian was at her funeral, and a couple other people from my school, and I was just like, "How the fuck did you know my librarian, bro?" Like, she just knew everybody, bro. She knew people from my primary school. Like, it was crazy. She was in the community. She really loved football. Her favorite team was Chelsea, and she would stick with them through every crushing defeat and celebrate every triumphant victory. She was the only reason I actually got interested in football myself. Even though I played football at school and outside in my neighborhood, I never really cared much for watching the sport. My cousin was a huge fan, and he would always try to get me to be interested, but it wasn't my thing. However, that changed one year when there was a nationwide raffle for the World Cup soccer ball that came out that year. All the kids at school wanted one, and all the lucky kids already had one. Like I'm telling you, I'm gonna put up a picture of the ball that I'm talking about. That shit was so cool. And Rose got one for my cousin and I. Even though I was not a football fan, it was not lost on me the specialty of that gift. This act alone made me become more interested in football, and I would slowly start becoming more interested after that. I remember my cousin and I spent several weeks of a summer vacation living with her, and it would sometimes just be me and her in the house after my cousin went outside to play. My family often criticized the fact that I didn't want to go outside to play anymore. I would rather stay inside and do things that interested me more after a certain age. Like, I think it was like when I started secondary school, I just stopped really wanting to go outside and play. And I just started staying inside and reading books more. You know what it was for me? So at primary school graduation, I actually got an award. I forgot what it was for, but it was for my creativity in secondary and primary school. So they put my name on this plaque and everything. I could put up a picture here actually. And I also got awarded a book from my English teacher called Time Travel by H.G. Wells. I don't remember if it's Time Traveler or Time Travel, but I remember it was H.G. Wells. One of my favorite books to this day. I read it I read it one time and like I thought it was cool and everything, but then I read it a second time. And when I read it this second time, I started to realize that there was definitely a double meaning with this book. Like it was not just about time travel. And once I realized that there was a double meaning with this book, it opened my eyes to the fact that books as a whole could have underlying meanings. And after that, I just wanted to stay inside and reread all the books I had read up until that point, just like looking for hidden meanings in all the books. Bro, it was so interesting to me. It's still interesting to me to this day, but this was the birth of that mindset. And I just wanted to stay inside and read books, bro. Or if I wasn't reading, I was writing. So I didn't want to go outside and play. And people used to call me slurs for that. Aunt Rose did not criticize me though. She took interest in what I was interested in, which was arts and reading. She encouraged me to keep drawing and writing, which was an unfamiliar kind of encouragement from other family members. I can't stress enough how important it was that she made it seem like a good thing that I resembled my father, because everyone else in my family was openly antagonistic about him and spited me for that exact same reason. If you haven't gathered by now, my family did not like my father, for good reason. He's a dick. Shouldn't have treated me like that though. I came home Saturday from getting a haircut and my Aunt Rose was there. I usually enjoy when she stops by, so I immediately got excited. But she wasn't feeling well and she just stopped by to lay down for a bit. She ended up staying into the night, which wasn't common for her since she had her own house, so I figured it must be some really nasty cold or headache if she was putting up with staying with us to wait it out. The night turned into 2 days and 2 days turned into 5. She was seemingly getting worse with whatever sickness had come over her. Quick side note, because it just came to me also, I also got sick during this time period. So this also just reinforces why I thought it was just a flu or something. I just because I ended up getting sick, so I thought that whatever it was that she had, I also caught. But for me, it was just me. Like, I really felt like throwing up. And I don't know if anyone else has felt like this, but it felt like throwing up would make me feel better, right? Like, no one likes throwing up, but also it made me feel like that was the only thing that would make me feel better. And I told my mom, and my mom was like, well, just go stick your hand down your throat and throw up. And I didn't know that that was a thing that you could do. I didn't know that that was real advice. So I thought she was just telling me to fuck off in several words. And I just stopped complaining about it to her. But then I went and I told Aunt Rose, and she's like, wait here. She goes downstairs. She concocts this tea, bro. And I was in my tea bag to around that time period because I was drinking like 3 cups of tea every fucking day. I loved tea during that time period. But not this tea. This tea tasted like basura. It was ass. And even though it was ass, I took a couple sips of that shit, immediately felt better, bro. Immediately felt better. I swear to God, I almost teared up because I was just like, you're my real mother. Like, my mother basically told me to fuck off and you actually fixed the problem while you are sick also. Nah, she was my Superman for that shit. My cousin got in trouble for something around that time and his father was disciplining him, which just amounted to excessive abuse. This wasn't new. I remember being upstairs with my Aunt Rose while it was happening, and she cried for him. She said that she wished my uncle would stop being this way towards my cousin. I did too. Even though my cousin was a dick to me sometimes, it was the kind of relationship that you have with a sibling. You ever seen a sibling get in trouble and they get their ass beat? Maybe you feel good because you feel like they probably deserved it, or maybe you don't. These weren't regular whoopings though, so I never felt good. Aunt Rose stayed with us a while longer until my great-grandmother told her that she should go to the hospital. She resisted for a while but ended up in the hospital a day later. She remained in the hospital for about 2 weeks but ended up passing away in mid-December of 2014. This is the moment I will identify to this day as the moment where I stopped believing in God. I remember exactly where I was when I heard the news. My uncle called the house to inform my grandmother, which was apparently not the plan. So, quick side note also, the plan was, so my aunt that lived with me and my mother both worked at the hospital. So I'm assuming that someone at the hospital probably told them that she was gonna die, and they called all the family over there and just sort of like broke the news to them. And the plan was to just have everyone that's at the hospital come to my house and just like break the news to my great grandmother, and now she would have her whole family surrounding her to comfort her and whatnot. But my uncle just called that and called her and fucked that whole plan up. Just told her on the phone like,
yeah, she died. She kicked the can.
and I remember I didn't hear what was said to her. I just heard my grandmother cry out saying, "Not my firstborn." That shit was just, I could still hear it. I could still hear it in my head clear as day. What was said on that day. I didn't need to know any more to realize what she had just heard. It felt like all the air left my lungs. It was such a shock to me because I never thought that the sickness was as serious as it was. Or maybe I hadn't understood how sudden death could arrive until then. I genuinely didn't know that she was dying. I thought she was just sick and that she would just get over it. So imagine my fucking surprise when I heard she's dead. Around this time period, I started calling myself an atheist. Considering that I'm from a country that is predominantly Christian, this was an immensely unpopular decision, especially at school. Kids called me a devil worshiper because I said I didn't believe in God. I think this was my anger phase in atheism. I didn't even know if I was fully atheist at the time. I just know I could no longer subscribe to the idea that there's an omnibenevolent God out there. Why would he do this? What's the mysterious reason that Aunt Rose had to die? She was the only one in the family who was nice to me. It hurt. I felt betrayed and lied to. No prayers worked. It took me by such a surprise too because I didn't know she was dying. I thought it was just a really bad sickness that she would eventually recover from. But I can definitely identify that this is where the deconstruction began. I called myself an atheist for only a brief time period. I was angry and I rejected the idea of God that I was taught of, but I didn't really believe that there was no God. I didn't believe that there was nothing. In that way, I was more or less a deist. I still believed that there was some higher power out there, but I was just certain that it did not love us. I definitely left Christianity on that day, though. Soon after, I actually started looking into Satanism. Kids at school started calling me a Satan worshiper because I didn't believe in God, and I didn't think it made any sense. Why would I worship Satan? I don't believe in him either. I thought to myself, are there actually people out there who worship Satan? And that's when I discovered Anton. See, this is a word I've only seen, never heard. LaVey. I'm gonna assume it's LaVey. This is when I discovered Anton LaVey and the Church of Satan. I even got a copy of the Satanic Bible. Not because I wanted to become a Satan worshiper, but because I had to understand why someone would ever worship Satan. Now, if you know ball, you know that LaVeyan Satanism has nothing to do with the biblical Satan. If you don't believe me, they have 11 commandments that Anton coined the 11 rules of earth. Rule 4 states, if a guest in your lair annoys you, treat him cruelly and without mercy. I'd really recommend giving this book a read if this kind of stuff interests you as much as it interests me. Ultimately, in all my research, I could not find any movement of people who actually worship the biblical figure that is Satan. Not just that, but in my research, I found out about concepts I hadn't known about since I was in my bubble of Christianity. I went on hating Christianity for many more years after that, but I don't think I really started to deconstruct in the sense that we would understand it until I started going to college and taking psychology classes. I also took some theology classes and history classes, and if you've taken any of these classes, especially as someone who is more so an agnostic at this point, you understand why school was the birthpoint of my actual deconstruction. After learning that we basically created gods that evolved with every society that rose and fell, I began to look at Christianity through a different lens. I was able to see the human psychology all over the Gospels. The Bible was no longer a book of divinity, but rather a creation of man. The next canon event for me in my deconstruction process was doing shrooms for the first time. I did shrooms in 2024 with my girlfriend, and the only way that I can describe the trip was insightful. I had moved out on my own for the first time, and it hadn't quite settled in for me yet what I had endured for the past 4 years living with my father. I lost my job and was in one of the deepest pits in my whole life. My roommate and I were at war, and it was making my life hell. I was stuck in an apartment with someone who wanted to complicate our living situation however they could. I was in a new state with no friends or family to help me through that time. The only thing that kept me sane was my girlfriend. Like, no, imagine I'm in a new country, so I don't even really have much friends in this country to begin with. I'm in a brand new state at this point in time. Like, I moved to this state away from the state that I was living in previously. So brand new state. The only person that I only knew 2 people in this state, my girlfriend and my roommate. So roommate making my life hell. I can't even go outside because like, what the fuck am I going to do? You know, like I lost my job. So I'm just home all the time. And a roommate is making it hell while I'm lit. Bro, that was a rough time period for me, bro. My girlfriend had just gotten some shrooms from a friend of hers and asked if I wanted to do them with her. She later retracted the offer as she had done shrooms many times and advised me not to do them whilst I was in the mental state that I was in. I didn't heed her advice. I needed a new experience to help me escape from what my life had become. It started with me being giddy and unable to sit still. Time wasn't a real concept. My girlfriend says that I kept asking her what time it was and wasn't exactly sure the increments between me asking because she didn't feel the passage of time normally herself either. Minutes felt like hours and hours felt like minutes. There were several times where I thought the high had ended just for it to kick even harder 3 days later. Or at least it felt like 3 days. I had no appetite. I felt kind of nauseated the entire time, but it was not hard to ignore the feeling. The trip took a downturn around the halfway point or second peak, I guess. I suddenly couldn't even be in my own room of my own apartment. I felt disgusted with the image I had created of myself. I kept asking my girlfriend who I was because I genuinely couldn't believe I had deluded everyone and myself into thinking that this person who had all these things was who I was. It felt like I was unknowingly trying to impress everyone with the way I lived, even though nobody would see. I didn't know who I was, but I know I wasn't being who I was meant to be, if that makes sense. I barked at a dog. I danced to music carefree along the street. We just lived. We experienced. We loved. We laughed. That's real, by the way. I did bark at a dog while I was on shrooms.
What's up, buddy?
There were times where I looked at my girlfriend smiling and I saw myself in her. I saw myself in everyone that we walked by that day. I had this feeling that we were all connected to the same source, and I thought that had to be God. And then I realized it was also just me. That trip changed me completely. I don't think I've been the same person since experiencing that. It felt like the mask was taken off, forcefully. The next day I woke up thinking I would go back to normal, but my perception of life had completely changed. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had been a fraudulent person my entire life up until that point. I realized I was pretending to be someone every single day of my life and that everyone else was doing the same thing. I could no longer pretend. After that, I found myself to be a more open and honest person because I no longer like to pretend. Pretend when I'm with certain people, but now I know it's an act. I can't convince myself of the lies anymore. It felt like I was abducted by aliens and brought back to live the life I've been living as if nothing happened. I barreled towards nihilism after that trip. After that trip, I feel like I had a complete disillusion of ego. It was so difficult for me to continue to pretend when I knew that everyone was pretending. I remember during that time period, I kept saying to my girlfriend, everyone's just fucking pretending. Everyone's just waking up every day and pretending. I was even saying it to one of my homeboys, I was just like, we're all just pretending. And he was taking it literal. He thought that I was saying that everyone was pretending. Like every day everyone was waking up and pretending, like actively pretending, but it's not. It's deeper than that. It's not that everyone was actively pretending. They were pretending without even knowing that they were pretending. They were waking up every day and they were doing things that they didn't have to do. We don't have free will, but you don't have to do. That's a whole nother thing too. I don't believe that we have free will. I believe that free will as a concept is created by the religious people to justify their religion, because free will needs to exist for God to be justified, especially in Christianity, especially in the Abrahamic religions. We have to have free will in order for the things that God allows us to endure to make sense. So that's why religious people will tell you that we have free will. You have free will to believe, but I don't have free will because I can't believe. I can't believe in God. And I tried. I really fucking tried. I can't just believe in God right now. I can't just go back to church and start believing. I will never believe ever again. Why was I made like this? Why was I made like this as someone who will ultimately end up not believing? It's not like if I tried. It's not like if I simply rejected the idea of God because I hate the idea of God. I rejected the Christian idea of God, but the idea of a God, I didn't reject it altogether. I did seek God. I did seek God in other religions. I remember I dated this girl that was Islamic, and I learned so much about the Islamic faith while I was dating her. I remember I dated this girl for a short time period who was Jewish. She was the only person in my entire life who actually pronounced my name how it's supposed to be pronounced. I don't even fucking pronounce my name how it's supposed to be pronounced. It's a Hebrew name, and I'm not Hebrew. So that was the first time that I heard someone pronounce my name the actual way it's supposed to be pronounced, which is Yohanan. It's similar, like closer to that than what the fuck I say and what my mother called me. Well, my father. But yeah, I did. And like I fully put myself in these religions because like I said, I'm very interested in religion itself. I'm very interested in theology, but the idea of a God, I just couldn't. I believe now it doesn't exist. You can't be gay. You be gay right now. Being gay is not having sex with the person of the same sex. If I tell you, if I put a gun to your head right now and I tell you fuck that nigga in the butt right now, you do it. Does that make you gay? No, it doesn't. Right? So if I told you be gay right now, you can't. You can't. So how could you be free? I don't know. That shroom trip really turned my whole fucking life around. I think that was like honestly a bigger part of my deconstruction than losing Aunt Rose. It was like Aunt Rose was the death of Christianity, but shrooms was the death of God for me. Like that was it. I stopped even believing that there possibly could be a higher power. I didn't know that that's what it was until very recently, but I now identify that reflecting on that time, that's what it was. I just lost faith completely. I started smoking weed heavily because I couldn't stand who I was when I was sober. I ended up in a huge depressive episode that was pretty tough for me at the time. I would spend multiple nights crying myself to sleep and not even knowing why I was sad. I would deadass clock out of work and get into the car before I even make my drive over. I'm just crying. Or sometimes I would be in the middle of my drive and I would start crying. Can't stop. Or I would get home and I'd be making myself a sandwich before I go to sleep. Just can't stop crying. And then I would just go on my bed, lay next to my girlfriend, hold her, and I still can't stop crying. Like I wouldn't, and I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know what it was. It was just that for a whole month and a half straight. It was tough. It was very tough. I remember during this episode, I felt like nobody understood me. I felt like the small support system that I had was failing me. And in that moment of weakness, I remember there was a day where I was driving to work and I thought to myself that maybe I should consider going to church. I knew that I could find community there, and that's what I thought that I needed at the time. I thought to myself, it couldn't hurt, could it? And then I laughed. It was a guttural, uncontrollable laugh that went on for 10 minutes straight. I had finally gone mad, I thought. But no. As I said, I couldn't even lie to myself anymore. So I couldn't convince myself for a second that that would work. That moment is when I started calling myself an atheist and actually knowing what it meant. It was no longer a rejection of God or a rebellion against what I was taught. I just simply didn't believe. I realized in that moment that I was going to be okay, as I've been through tougher times mentally and physically and made it out on the other side. I didn't need the idea of a God to comfort me. I never did. I knew within myself that the pain was temporary. It always is. I was fully nihilist at that point, and I realized that we have no purpose in existing. Do we need a purpose to be given to enjoy the lives that we have? I thought. I'm an atheist in the sense that I don't believe in any of the gods that we have, but agnostic in the sense that I'm unwilling to count out the possibility of a God altogether. It's similar to if you asked me how many blades of grass there were on Earth. How would I know? I wouldn't even know what number to guesstimate. But I can tell you for sure it's not 5. I'm not certain that there isn't a God. I just don't think it's any of the ones that we came up with. Not Yahweh, not Allah, not Ya'al-Ba'oth, or Vishnu, or Siddhartha Gautama, or Odin, or Zeus, or you get the point. I am willing to believe that there is a God who loves me, because who doesn't want to believe that? However, I have no reason to think that. And I don't think that any human is going to convince me of that. God must do it himself. Not because I'm arrogant and I think that I deserve special treatment, but if you love someone, wouldn't you want to show it? Now you know who I am, what I believe, and how I got here. I don't know what kind of content I'm going to end up making after this. J. Cole just put out an album the other day, and I kind of wanted to make a review of that. Like when I put music in the intro, it's not just because I'm going to be referencing it sometimes. I dead ass want to do music reviews. I want to do whatever I would enjoy watching, because I know that I'm not the only person that enjoys watching the content that I like to watch. So if I gotta make this kind of content to find my people who also enjoy watching this variety of content that I watch, then maybe I just make the content for them, you know? And that's just kind of the mentality that I have right now. But I don't know what kind of video I'm going to be making after this, but I just know that I want people to know where I'm coming from with the decisions that I decide to make with this channel. Not only with the kind of content that I decide to make, but the kind of mentalities, the kind of opinions that I might bring forward on this channel, so that people understand that it's not coming from a place of hatred. I feel like a lot of conversations that I engage with, people just assume that I have a deep hatred for something because I usually have strong and poignant opinions on certain things. And it's like, I don't, I don't really back down easily, but I don't really back down easily because I don't take a lot of fights. And when I do take a fight, it's like, I know what the fuck I'm talking about. You know, like I wouldn't say anything if I didn't. I don't I don't mind being wrong about something, but I also don't like being made to look like an idiot. I don't like being made to look like a fool. So I usually just stay quiet. If someone has knowledge to impart on me, then tell me. I got no problems. I think that it even got better with the disillusionment of my ego, because I don't feel the need to be right about anything. I don't know shit. You don't know shit. None of us know anything. We're just specks on a dot that's revolving around the sun. Now that we got that part of the video out of the way, it's time for Christians to come to the front of the class, drop them pants. It's time for belt to ass. Oh, that was a bar. Remember how I touched on some of the state killings that have been happening all over the country in the beginning of the first video that I made on this whole introductory series? And yeah, if you're on the right side of history, at least, that disgusts you. It disgusts you that ICE is able to do the things that they're able to do around the country without any repercussions, right? What if I told you that this was sanctioned in the Bible? What if I told you that there is a Bible verse that basically allows for this kind of violence to happen? And it's called Romans chapter 13. Let me get my Bible for this part. I bet y'all thought I was fucking around, right? If you know me personally, you know that I actually love the Bible. You know that this is my shit. Like I said, theology. I also had a copy of the Quran, but I gave it away. I almost got a copy of the Torah, but I just don't see the point if I have a Bible that has the Old Testament and the New Testament. But I'm interested in this kind of thing, and I honestly think that there's a lot in the Bible that's good. I think there's a lot that could be learned from the Bible. This is why I don't agree with anti-theists who posit the belief that religion as itself is rotten and that we need to get rid of religion. I don't think that we need to get rid of religion, because the communal aspect of religion is like just across the board. You could look at any studies to prove this. I wish that I could be one of those people who could quote studies that I remember off the top of my head. I just remember that there was a study that was done that proves that people who are religious are just happier. It's kind of like a ignorance is bliss kind of thing. Like they just lead happier lives because they have something to fall back on. They have something to help them cope with the harsh realities of life. They believe that someone is out there looking over them, and someone is out there like making sure that that they have a happy afterlife or whatever, right? So there's clearly a communal aspect of religion that is important, and I think that if atheists or just people who are secular wish for the world to become more secular, we need to be able to identify that there are some good parts of religion and take away those good parts of religion and incorporate them into secularism, right? Because the experience of going to a church, the communal experience of going to a church, is bar none one of the best experiences for people in general. Like I said, I didn't like church, but I also could identify why other people like church. Because even though I didn't like church, I love going to a fucking concert, bro. Y'all motherfuckers ever went to a bro? I went to a weekend concert. I went to a bunch of concerts. Like I went to a Travis Scott concert. Like when you go to a concert and you're surrounded by a bunch of people who, oh my god, bro. Oh my god, I'm just reminiscing, bro. Like, there was this one time that I went to a music festival. One of the best times I've ever experienced. Just being surrounded by a bunch of strangers, strangers that I don't even know, people I don't even know. And there was this lady that came up to me, and she was clearly off of something or several somethings. She was just like, I feel so much love for you. Like, I don't know you, but you just have the aura of someone who's so loving. And then we danced together, and then she gave me this fucking bracelet afterwards, and I was like, holy shit. And I racked up like 5 or 6 of them bitches, and I'm like, yo, I don't know any of these people, but I feel so loved right now, and we're all partaking in this music. We're all loving this music. It felt like what I assume people feel like when they go to church, the communal aspect of feeling loved, feeling seen, feeling unalone in this world. I don't know if that's a word, but I just made it a word. Feeling unalone in this world. I assume that that's what people feel like when they go to church, and that's a feeling that we do need to know how to incorporate into secularism if we hope to bring people away from the church. Because why the fuck would I stop going to church if that's what it feels like to go to church, and secularists have nothing to replace that feeling? So no, I don't believe that religion itself is rotten. I think that religion is very interesting. I think that Christianity for sure definitely has to go, but I think that there's a lot that could be learned from the Bible. So yes, I have my own Bible. I think that a lot more people should read it and really read what's in it, because there's a lot of bad shit in it. But there's also a lot of good shit in it. And if you respect and have reverence for the person that historical Jesus was, then looking at the Bible through that lens is actually a way more enriching experience than looking from the Bible through the lens of God, of Jesus as the divine. Because I think that's where we fucked up. I think that's where we fucked up in the Bible. When we started looking at Jesus as the divine person, it's not even clear whether or not Jesus said that he was God. So the fact that we divinified him, if that's a word, I just made it a word. I'm gonna just do that a lot in this channel. I'm gonna make up fucking words. Divinified. Definitely think that us divinifying him fucked us over. But if you just look at Jesus like how the Buddhists look at the Buddha, I think there's a lot to be learned there. Like just respecting Jesus and the ways that he lived his life and the teachings that he had to give. But yeah, Romans chapter 13. Turn your pages right the fuck now. Romans chapter 13, submission to the authorities. I'm not going to read this whole thing, just the part that proves my point. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authorities except from God, and those that exist have been instituted by God. Therefore, whoever resists the authorities resists what God has appointed, and those who resist will incur judgment. For rulers are not a terror to good conduct, but to bad. One more time, slowly. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities. The government, the authorities, the feds. Let every person be subject to the governing authorities, for there is no authority except from God. And those that exist have been instituted by God. So you remember that time where that one dude said that that Donald Trump put God in the to be our president or some shit like that? I'm paraphrasing. I might just put up a clip of what he said. Yeah, he was right. He was dead right. God did that. Your God did that. Yahweh, your boy, he did that. And he did it twice. He did it twice. Yeah. Ice, solidified water. Yeah, he did it. He did that. And if you're outside protesting what's happening in the country right now, you're being quite literally unchristian right now. You are disobeying God. Why are you protesting God? Why are you protesting God and the authorities that he instituted? You think that God gives a fuck about protests? Do you want to risk getting smitten from God being outside protesting? Get inside your fucking house and open your Bible. That's what y'all need to do. Obviously, I am being satirical in this situation. Yes, you should go out and you should protest, but also stop using which parts of the Bible you want to pick and choose to push your agendas. That will be it for me from this video. If y'all enjoyed this video, please like, please share, please subscribe. I don't have any like goals. I don't have any sub goals. I just want people to enjoy the content. I just want people to watch the content. And if it resonates with you, then we can start a conversation in the comments. I really and truly don't want to argue. And if I feel like I'm going to be engaging in arguing in the comments, I'm just not going to reply to you. It's just that simple. I do appreciate everyone who watches my content, except roll the clip. Stay over there. Stay over there. I don't like you. I don't want anything to do with you. And you can click off the video. I don't need your views either. Fuck you.